tract and circulatory system. There's none of that. So it's not alive. It's a waste product.
Right.
It's dissolved animal tissue.
Right.
Okay.
But now,
and specific animal tissue. So what they do is they take animal tissue and put it in a petri dish in a contaminated environment, but with enough solution to keep them alive. So the cells start taking themselves apart with solvents. And will eventually kill the cell. This virus will kill the cell. It'll kill itself by poisoning itself and taking itself apart.
I want to ask you to elaborate more about the AIDS virus. So the AIDS virus is created in a lab at UCLA. For what purpose would they create something like that? They
were trying to create, according to the records that I got to see, and they were discovered by a Dr. Robert Strecker. I'm a nutritional doctor, got my PhD in nutrition. Dr. Strecker has like 4 doctorates, and one is in biochemistry and virology.
Right.
Now, the only way that you can make a virus is to put it in a petri dish with the animal tissue. Okay, the only way that animal tissue can ever get into a human is if it is injected or another animal.
Right.
So what they did was they incubated these 2 diseases from both a sheep and a cow, the leukemic virus of a cow, the bovine, and the lymphonomic virus of a sheep. They put those 2 together and created a new kind of deadly biological warfare disease.
So
now,
was that the reason for it? Were they trying to come up with a new biohazard, a new biological warfare?
They could have been the reason, but they put in their paperwork it was to create cancer. It was to force cancer in laboratory animals so they could study cancer.
Okay.
That is very suspicious reasoning to me, to come up with something
because
there's
there's already lots of agents out there that will cause spontaneous tumor and cancers in rats.
Exactly. I mean, you can put cadmium in it, and you can have kidney cancer in weeks, overloading with cadmium. There are lots of ways. So this was a suspicious reasoning for me, to my thinking. But it was done. Dr. Strecker called his brother, who was an attorney, and said, "This is where it leads. Follow it." So his brother checked the NSA, the War Department, and yes, that information had been sent to those departments, and it was allowed, it was given the green light to be used in experiments. So he found out the experiments were undesirables. They figured that in these particular committees that the undesirables were homosexuals.
Right.
Now, how could they administer this to homosexuals to see the consequences of this particular formulation?
Well, you just have to find homosexuals who are also intravenous drug users, and then spike the heroin or the speed or whatever they're shooting with some of this stuff, I guess.
No, you still can't get a good population that way. What they found was that in Los Angeles, New York City, Houston, and San Francisco, that 90% of the people who were being treated for hepatitis were homosexuals because they used a lot of drugs, damaged the liver. So hepatitis is a viral detoxification because there's so many chemicals in the liver, your bacteria from the liver can't clean it. So your body has to, the liver cells have to make solvents, which are again viruses. So it makes a self-cleansing substance. So all of your hepatitis are diseases trying to reverse a toxic condition where the liver is about to stop working completely. When you get to hepatitis, that means your liver is in terrible shape. No bacteria can help you.
So you're saying they contaminated the hepatitis vaccine?
B vaccine. With this AIDS virus. And they injected, that's why 10% of the population in those cities who got AIDS were not homosexuals, they were heterosexuals.
Oh my God.
Then they went and put it in the smallpox vaccine. The U.S. government and the U.K. government donated hundreds of millions of dollars of smallpox vaccine to African countries. Then all of these do good meaning groups, go out and administer and going to save the world by giving all these vaccines, to African children and everybody to save their lives were, from smallpox, were given this AIDS virus in the smallpox vaccine.
That's amazing.
125 million were donated. How many cases of AIDS were propped up in Africa within a year?
I don't know that number, but I remember it was like half the population.
95 million.
Right.
75 million people died. Then what the U.S. government and the U.K. government did, went to those countries and said, listen, we have, help for AIDS. We have chemotherapy, which is AZT.
Right.
We have chemotherapy that we can help your people with. We can help you stop this disease. We can treat your people. We'll bring the medical in, but you will owe us a lot of money. Now, they charged so much money that no way these countries could pay back. So when all was said and done, and all these people were dead, and very few people ever came through the AIDS without death, the U.S. government and U.K. government says, oh, you owe us this much money. If you can't pay it, you owe us your country's resources.
Wow.
So they turned over the country's resources to be run by the World Bank. So we took over, the U.S. government and the U.K. government took over 27 African countries with that AIDS hoax and inundation.
That's amazing.
It's just like they use a different kind of warfare to usurp another country's, resources.
Shocking.
It's like war, the Spanish, the Roman,
It's a stealth. They're waging a stealth war, because almost like a Trojan horse war, because they are being perceived as they're being invited in. They're being perceived as the saviors, but they're really the ones creating the problem so that they can come in and finish the job.
Absolutely. And if you read the book Confessions of a Financial Hitman, I think that's the title. It talks of this man who worked for the U.S. government and the CIA. They went in and, loaned great amounts of money to foreign countries, foreign governments that could never pay it back, and then would take over their resources.
Wow. Look,
that's the same thing they did with this AIDS incident.
Wuhan National Biosafety Lab is owned by GlaxoSmithKline, who merged with and owns a controlling 68% stakes in Pfizer, who manages the finances of BlackRock, who owns stakes in both Pfizer and AstraZeneca, and who has a partnership with Thomson Reuters, who supplies 80% of the news stories to the world's mainstream media. Thomson Reuters has created a branch within its editorial department to fact-check information about Pfizer COVID vaccines on social media, which may be why the Reuters mainstream media news neglected to inform you that the same World Bank that took over Africa's resources through a fake injected AIDS pandemic has now declared that this worldwide fake COVID pandemic will go on until March 31st, 2025, so they can do the same thing to your countries. They probably also forgot to tell you that COVID-19 test instruments, meaning diagnostic test kits, were already ordered back in 2018, 2 years before COVID-19 allegedly even existed and broke out in a wet market in China. Denmark sure pre-ordered a lot of them back in 2018, so did Uruguay, as well as the European Union, United States, Germany, Japan, and Singapore. They must have been psychic. That is why the pharmaceutical for-profit industry is so hell-bent on you never finding out that their pasture fraudulent germ theory was debunked by Béchamp 160 years ago. If you ever figure out that over 100 million Africans and homosexuals were murdered by the injection of poisonous foreign protein antigens in hepatitis B and smallpox vaccines, and then poisoned to death by toxic AZT mustard gas chemotherapy as the AIDS treatment, then you will figure out you are now being murdered and poisoned to death by this AIDS-creating, RNA modification vaccine and would never in a million years take this injection if you have even one functioning brain cell working inside your skull. They are preying on your ignorance to further their UN Agenda 21 depopulation goals. As CNN founder Ted Turner said in an interview with Audubon magazine, the present vast overpopulation, now far beyond the world carrying capacity, cannot be answered by future reductions in the birth rate due to contraception, sterilization, and abortion, but must be met in the present by the reduction of numbers presently existing. This must be done by whatever means necessary. An article in Live Science magazine entitled "Why an Australian COVID-19 Vaccine Caused False Positive HIV Tests" verifies what this film and Dr. Andrew Wakefield are discussing. You do not catch HIV. It is an autoimmune disease response to foreign, poisonous antigen proteins injected into or created by your own cells in your body. Since your RNA modification now literally gives you COVID-AIDS, it doesn't take a molecular biologist to figure out why you are testing positive for AIDS after your injection. Only unlike the Neshian Africans, who allowed do-gooder NGO groups to inject them with poisonous AIDS-causing smallpox vaccines, you are going to ignorantly let some ignorant vaccination center employee making $10 an hour modify your own cellular RNA to give yourself an autoimmune disease and depopulate yourself. Once your body no longer has the energy to keep fighting off these poisonous proteins your cells will continue to create. It will be blamed on the bogus mutated strain of COVID, a second deadly wave, and the ignorant will be none the wiser.
In fact, the testing could have been ramped up very quickly in a few countries that have almost avoided the epidemic entirely, like Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia. They took their experience and actually prepared, and so they moved a lot faster. So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
If this sounds like conspiracy theory to you, it probably did to the Africans and homosexuals too, but that didn't stop 100 million of them from being murdered nonetheless. So you have been warned, because the same people who killed them are now coming for you and your country's resources. As you've probably already heard, COVID's vaccines must be kept in special suitcases and stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius or minus 94 degrees Fahrenheit, which is colder than Antarctica. Dr. Evenhouse points out that this is because this is not a vaccine. It is a transcription and transfection agent kept alive so it can infect your cells and transfer genetic material. This is genetic manipulation of humans on a massive scale. He says, shut it down. What you probably haven't heard is that this exact same technology was utilized in SIT projects to sterilize male mosquito populations who would then mate with females and sterilize them in order to wipe out entire mosquito populations. They too use transgenic technology in which genes not already present in the mosquitoes are added and manipulated, and also symbiont-based technologies in which another species, such as bacterium, is introduced to the host mosquitoes, just as the COVID mRNA vaccine is injecting into your arm to serve as instructions for your body to make foreign microbial protein poisons. The UK government website states it is unknown whether COVID-19 mRNA vaccine has an impact